Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into the Week 15 edition of the Sunday Sideline Report, part of the Sports Insanity Network. I am Mike Rifkin, flying solo today, so should be a fun episode, but we got a lot of football to talk about. We had 3 games Saturday. We got a whole big slate of games today as well. Before we get started, happy or merry early Christmas, as 1 week from today we will be celebrating Christmas. But today, it's all about the pigskin. So let's start today's show with a recap of the 3 games yesterday, and we'll start with the largest comeback in NFL history took place yesterday in Minnesota as the Vikings beat the Colts 39-36 in overtime, giving Minnesota the NFC North division with the win. Just some stats. Kirk Cousins, 34 of 54, 462 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. If you want to be honest, it's 5 touchdowns, but 1 was a pick 6. Dalvin Cook, 17 carries, 95 yards, also had a big receiving touchdown. KJ Osborne, 10 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Justin Jefferson also went for over 100 yards and a touchdown for the Colts. Matt Ryan, 19 of 33, 182 yards, and a touchdown. Zach Moss had his best game as a Colt, 24 carries, 80 yards. And Michael Pittman Jr. had 10 catches and 60 yards. But like I said at the beginning, this was the largest comeback in NFL history because at one point in this game, the Indianapolis Colts were up 33-0. Let me say that one more time. At one point, the Indianapolis Colts were up 33-0. And at halftime, no, they were up 33-0 at halftime. Minnesota then scored a touchdown in the third quarter, 33-7. And then it just, from there on, Minnesota outscored Indy in the fourth quarter, 22-0. 22-0 in the fourth quarter. The Vikings outscored the Colts. And the Colts were outscored 39-3 in the second half and overtime. So there's 2 ways we could go about this. I'm going to start with the Colts because, first of all, it should be illegal to blow that kind of lead on a Saturday with Jeff Saturday as your head coach. I mean, that's just disrespecting the day, Jeff Saturday. I think you can go out on a limb here, and there's a couple of teams you could bring up in this, whether it's the Rams, whether it's the Packers, whether it's the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Indianapolis Colts are the biggest disappointment in the NFL this year. I really believe that because I felt with Matt Ryan at the helm coming into this year, this team had the potential to be a dark horse contender in the AFC. And they have completely of that is Jonathan Taylor has not had the year he had last year. I still think they're short at least they're short at least one receiver. I like Michael Pittman, but outside of that, Alec Pierce is a rookie. Ashton Doolin. I mean, guys like the Paris Campbell, those are nice pieces. Those aren't number 2 receivers in this league. Those are nice depth guys around the league. So that they need to figure out, and they need to go get another receiver. And I've been on the record with that for a while. The offensive line has regressed. I really don't know what happened there. Don't. The defense, I don't know either. I've got no answers for you because they got talent. DeForest Buckner. I love Yannick Ngakoue. Love him. I know Shaq Leonard's been in and out of the lineup, mostly out this year. You go to the secondary, Stephon Gilmore's been pretty good. Other corners kind of struggled. Kenny Moore is a pretty good safety. He didn't play yesterday. Julian Blackmon had a pick six. But there's something off about this team. And I think yesterday was the cherry on top of a disastrous season for the Indianapolis Colts. A game they needed. Not for the playoffs, because they probably weren't going, whether they won or lost, but for their psyche. And the offense in the second half didn't look as aggressive or as crisp. The defense fell apart. I mean, if you're given a 33 to nothing lead at halftime and you can't hold that, everyone is going to point the finger at Jeff Saturday, and that's probably fair. But Matt Ryan's been in this position. Matt Ryan deserves some blame. I think the play calling, everybody's at blame. I can't just fault Jeff Saturday because he's the coach. And if you didn't like the hire of Jeff Saturday, you could have a field day with this. And you could be like, this is another example of why he didn't deserve the job. Me, I don't care. I don't blame him for everything that goes wrong with this team. But Matt Ryan has now blown the largest regular season lead in NFL history and the largest Super Bowl lead in NFL history. So how the Colts bounce back, I don't know. I do not know. But you flip side it to the Vikings, and this is something they do all year. They win close games. I think they're 9-0 now in one possession games, which is the best record in the league. And I mean, if you look at what they did on offense in particular in the second half, I mean, I brought up Kirk Cousins, 460, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, was sacked 7 times. But Dalvin Cook had 95 yards rushing, and he had 95 yards receiving, plus a long 64-yard touchdown. Justin Jefferson, who is the best receiver in football currently, 12, $123 and a touchdown. KJ Osborne, no relation to Ozzy Osbourne, 10 for $157 and a touchdown. Adam, I had a pretty good feeling about yesterday. 3 for 41 in the touch. And those 3 guys, Jefferson, Thielen, Cook. There are not many teams that could say they have 2 very good wide receivers. I want to use the E word, but I don't know if Adam Thielen still is elite. And an elite running back like Dalvin Cook. There are not many teams that could come out there and say they have 2 great wide receivers and an elite running back. Justin Jefferson's elite. Thielen's the one where I question elite. But listen, the Vikings find ways to win. Like last year under Mike Zimmer, this team found ways to lose games. This year, polar opposite. They're finding ways to win. And that's the mark of a good team. I get it. They're 11-3, and 2 of those 3 losses, blown out by Philly in week 2, crushed by Dallas a couple of weeks ago. I totally understand that. Are the Vikings flawed? For sure. But I don't think the perfect NFL team exists. And you could comment with the Cowboys, you could comment with the Eagles, you could comment with the Bills, the Chiefs. I don't care. Every team has a flaw. There is not the perfect team does not exist. But for the Vikings, I think this does really 3 things. 1, it won the division. But 2, I think the Vikings, this is going to sound weird, but I think the Vikings fly under the radar even at 11-3. Because what I just said, we talk a lot about the Eagles. We talk a lot about the Dallas Cowboys. And we talk about the San Francisco 49ers, and let me tell you something. That's the team you don't want to play in the NFC in the playoffs. The Niners. They won the West Thursday night, but still, you do not want to play them come playoff time. They're scary good. Don't care who the quarterback is. Brock is pretty good. That defense is legit. I'll digress on that one. But I think the Vikings fly a little bit under the radar because of those 3 teams. And because Kirk Cousins is an easy punching bag. You could sit there and say Kirk Cousins can't win a big game. He won't win the big game. He can't win the big game. He can't. I think we need to stop with that narrative a little bit, because Kirk Cousins has won some big games this year. This is a big game. To clinch the division, in a game where you're down 33-0, that a lot of teams could have folded. This team didn't fold. So I'm big on Kirk Cousins. Kevin O'Connell, for me, like we need to start talking more Kevin O'Connell in the Coach of the Year conversation. We really got to do it. So I like the Vikings. I'm not going to say they're going to win the NFC. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to say I wouldn't be shocked if they went to the NFC Championship game. Would not be shocked. And defensively, they were great in the second half. I'll say that. They were much better in the second half defensively. But they also had 2 defensive touchdowns by Chandon Sullivan taken away. And so this game could have been a little bit different if those stood. One of them I thought both were bad calls, in my opinion. If a receiver's still churning his legs, his forward progress is not stopped. And the other one is you can't blow a whistle when there's a clear with a fumble. The refs were excruciating in that game. So the Vikings win the NFC North. The Colts, a terrible loss. I don't know where the Colts in a season where how much lower can it go for the Colts? It keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So the Vikings winning the NFC North. Now to the AFC North, we saw the Cleveland Browns get a win, a 13-3 win over the former Cleveland Browns in the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns go to 6-8. The Ravens 9-5. Deshaun Watson, 18 of 28, 161 yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb did his thing, another 99 yards. Amari Cooper had 4 catches for 58 yards. Baltimore, Tyler Huntley, 17-30, 138 yards and a pick. J.K. Dobbins, 13 carries, 125 yards. Mark Andrews, 3 catches, 31 yards. Now, here's the story of all you need to know. Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals. That has not happened in 4 years. Justin Tucker missed a field goal and had 1 blocked in this game. So, Justin Tucker misses 2 field goals. The Ravens' offense is inept. With so the Ravens' offense is currently inept. Yesterday they had 324 of total offense, but 126 passing yards, 198 rushing yards. But here's my thing on the Ravens. This is where I'm going to look at them. Because yesterday proved 2 things to me. One, you've got to pay Lamar. And I like Tyler Huntley. I like Tyler Huntley a lot. Yesterday was not good. 2, the Ravens are the one team, and I'm going to say this because I'm going to get heat from some people. The Baltimore Ravens are the one team that could actually use Odell Beckham Jr. The Ravens have expectations. The Ravens have a franchise quarterback. The Ravens don't have great receivers. Dallas, it's a luxury. Buffalo would be a luxury. The Giants, I don't know what I'll talk about the Giants in a little bit when I'm talking Giants Commanders tonight. The Ravens need something on the outside, whether it's Odell Beckham, whether it's through the draft, because their go-to guy has always been Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews, I don't want to say he's having a bad year, but they need someone who can help open up Mark Andrews. Kind of like Kansas City here for a second. I know they lost Tyreek Hill, but they brought in Juju and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And what that's done, those two, even though that's a step down from what Tyreek Hill is, that still opens up the field for Travis Kelce, who I still don't understand how teams like get free, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the Ravens need some weapons here on the outside. Like they got some nice players. Here's the Ravens receivers yesterday. Mark Andrews had 3 catches for 30 yards. Devin Duvernay had 2 catches for 29 yards. Demarcus Robinson had 6 catches for 29 yards. Isaiah Likely had 2 for 18. Justice Hill 1 for 15. Josh Oliver 2 for 13. J.K. Dobbins 1 for 3. Deshaun Jackson and James Prochet both did not have a catch. I know the Ravens aren't the team that could go say, I'm going to drop back, throw the ball 40 times, and that's how we're going to win. That's not how they do it. But you at least need to have a threat in this offense. That's not Mark Andrews. So for me, if Baltimore doesn't make the playoffs, I don't think they'll miss, to be honest with you. I think they're too good. But that's for me, that's priority 2, getting a receiver, because priority 1 is franchising or extending, however they're going to go about it, with Lamar Jackson. Lamar's got to stay. Then they got to work around this and get him the help, and that way we could just actually talk about this team as a 2022 NFL team. Because the way they run an offense now, I get it. It's ground and pound, and that's what they want to do. They want to be tougher than you. You still need to throw the ball a little bit down the field, and they don't have those guys. For Cleveland, Deshaun Watson's best game since coming back from his suspension. 18, 28 bucks, 61, a touchdown. Cleveland ran the ball for 143 yards. Watson ran the ball well. Nick Chubb is a stud. Cooper had a nice game. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a nice game. And look, Cleveland is the defense was really good in this game. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say Cleveland's going to make the playoffs now because Deshaun Watson's back. I'm not going to do that. But they're building something for next year. With Watson, Chubb, they're gaining chemistry. He's gaining chemistry with the wide receivers. The defense is really good, even though it's banged up a lot. Long term, I think Cleveland is in pretty good shape. Not sure about this year because I don't believe they own a lot of tiebreakers. Excuse me. But they're going to make things interesting down the stretch. They really can. But for now, they do knock Baltimore out of first place. Baltimore is currently in a wild card spot. The Bengals, who I will talk about later as well, they get elevated into the AFC North divisional lead. So the last game on Saturday, and it was another good one. We had two really good games, and the Browns and the Ravens. The Bills beat the Dolphins 32-29, clinching a playoff berth for Buffalo for the fourth straight year. Josh Allen, 25 of 40, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also ran for 77 yards. Dawson Hard Knock, 6 catches, 98 yards, at a touchdown. For the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, 17 of 30, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, 17 carries, 136 yards. And Jalen Waddle, 3 catches, 114 yards, and a touchdown. So I can come on here and talk about a lot of different things with this game. I'm going to start with the Dolphins for a second. One, I don't want to hear the narrative that Tua Tagovailoa didn't play because he played very well. He had some drops for him yesterday by the receivers, whether it was Trent Sherfield, I think Tyreek Hill had a couple. The receivers were not helping him early in this game, but he settled down, and I thought Tua played really well. They did not lose because of Tua Tagovailoa. They ran the ball effectively. Mostert, 17 for 136. Salvin Ahmed, 6 for 143. Tua even had a nice scramble. They ran for 188 yards and averaged 7.5 yards per carry. I think they should have ran the ball a little bit more. Now, that's just me. 25, bump it 5 more times. Pound it. They were winning in the trenches. They really were. Waddle had a solid game. Tyreek Hill had 9 for 69 and a touchdown. But outside of that, Cedric Wilson, Mostert, Alec Ingold, Mike Gesicki, all those guys have 1 catch. Sherfield had 1 target, which was a drop in the end zone. The other part of this game, look, you got to score in the red zone. You got to get 6. You can't get 3, and the Dolphins took 3 twice. But if you look back, that's the difference in this game. And flip side, Josh Allen's a stud. I think everyone knows that. That's a good team. And I thought both these games, both Bills-Dolphins games, were really good games. They were tight. They were competitive till the end. A break. Let's be fair. A break in Miami, the Bills probably won. A break here and there. A break here and there last night, the Dolphins won that game. I'm not going to come in and bash the call on Kohu at the end of the game. I've let my feelings known on that call. I don't like it. I understand that it's PI, but the way some of the other calls in the game were going, if you're going to let them play, you got to let them play throughout. And I just don't like with 40 seconds left, the officials making that call. Sorry. To me, that decided the game. And it was a great game. I'm not going to sit here and belittle how great the game was. But so the Bills win and they clinch a playoff berth. They have not won the AFC East yet. I believe they could do that with a win next week, but I'm not 100% on that. So that's what happened yesterday. Thursday night, the Niners beat the Seahawks. They clinched the NFC West. They're dangerous. And we went over that game on SIP the other night, so I'm not going to go through everything that happened, although I'll say this. If the Niners use George Kittle in the playoffs like they did Thursday night, the Niners just got tougher. The Niners got tougher. George Kittle's the pot, man. He pot in the kettle. So, and look, Seattle's. I think if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, you come into this year, or you're going to come out of this year, whether they make the playoffs or not, very happy. Because a couple of things. One, Geno's had a really nice year. So you're going to have the opportunity because you own the Denver Broncos first round pick, which is probably going to be in the top 5. And you could sit there and say two things. We can go look at a franchise quarterback, or we can go get another impact player on another side of the ball. Now, my money, if the guy's out there, and I know people may disagree. When the Seahawks were great in the 2012, 13, 14, I know it was Ross. I know they loved to run the ball. I know the Legion of Boom was there with Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Browner, and Richard Sherman. They also had Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. And I think that's what this team kind of misses. So the guy I'm going with is Will Anderson from Alabama. That, to me, would be a guy I think they would love in Seattle. Great edge rusher. That's the guy, if I'm the Seahawks, that's a guy I'm looking at. But the draft is a long time away, and the Seahawks want to make the playoffs. So, and they're still in the hunt. We're going to stay in the NFC West because Monday night during the Cardinals-Patriots game, Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray tore his ACL. Non-contact injury. It sucks. I believe they say he's going to undergo surgery some point this week. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready for the start of next year. They're talking he might be. I would not rush him back, especially after the contract the Cardinals just gave him. I would be very much inclined to doing this if I was the Cardinals. I would bring in someone who I think, you know what? If we're going to ease Kyler back, which I would do, let's bring in a veteran quarterback. And maybe even a guy who could help out, who we think could be better than we thought. I think a guy who makes a lot of sense is Jameis Winston. You know, if the Saints are going to dump him, which possibly because they're rolling with Andy Dalton right now. But there's another one. Andy Dalton's a good veteran guy who could lead a team. You could keep Colt McCoy. I mean, I'm not going to have a beef with that. It's just I don't know where the Cardinals go because I think the Cardinals are an interesting team to watch. What happens with Kingsbury? I know Kyler's injured. They have a great receiving core with Hopkins, Zach Ertz, Hollywood Brown. They're going to need a running back because James Conner not having the same year he had last year. I think a lot of people thought he wouldn't be as good, but he needs. They need a guy to pair him off with. Defense is not that good. Love J.J. Watt. Not sure if he stays or goes. The corners are not great. Love Buda Baker. Look, this is a team. Look, you're in a division. It's going to be tough. The Niners are really good, apparently, and it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I think the Rams are just having a down year. Injuries have hurt them. Some key losses have hurt them. I think the Rams could be back next year. And I like Seattle. I like what Seattle's building out there. So those 4 teams in the NFC West, it's going to be interesting in the next few years. Well, speaking of people who have to win a division, someone's got to win the putrid NFC South. The Bucks got stomped last week by the Niners. They're playing the Bengals today. We'll talk about that game. Carolina's still in the mix here with Sam Darnold. Atlanta's right there with them. And the Saints, who, had they won that game a couple of Mondays ago against the Bucks, the Saints would be in a glorious opportunity. Instead, they blew that game. And really, they still have a chance. But, boy, it would have been better knowing you beat Tampa a couple of weeks ago. But someone's got to win this division, and someone's going to get a home playoff game, most likely against the Dallas Cowboys. That's your reward for winning this terrible division, is a match with the Cowboys. But it's a rough year in the NFC South. But look, stranger things have happened. And the Seahawks, remember, I think it was 2010, won 7-9. They hosted the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints and beat them in Seattle. That was the Marshawn Lynch beast mode run. So stranger things have happened, but that division, So, you know what? While we're talking NFC South, 2 big games in that division. One features 2 teams. The Falcons are playing the Saints. Desmond Ridder will make his first career NFL start, the former Cincinnati quarterback. Marcus Mariota was put on injured reserve. There's a lot going on with Mariota. Apparently, when it was announced Ridder was starting, he had left the team, and there's this whole disconnect between him and Arthur Smith that's kind of been reported. But, boy, interesting stuff. But Desmond Ridder starts for the Falcons. Andy Dalton for the Saints, who are still alive, if you want to be technical. But the Falcons need this game, man. If the Falcons want to win this division, which I think they, of the 3 teams involved, I know everyone's going to, of the 4 teams, because the Saints aren't eliminated. I get the Bucks and Brady are still the Bucks and Brady, but they haven't played well all year. I don't know why I would expect them to just flip a switch. Carolina, I'm not trustworthy on Darnold or that team at all. The other part for me, it's just Atlana'd be an interesting story, but especially with Desmond Ridder, you want to see what you have there. But Atlanta in New Orleans today, I actually think the Falcons win. I think the Falcons find a way, like they found a way most of the year. I think they go into New Orleans and they find a way to beat the Saints. I really believe that. So that's the first one. The other one I mentioned, the Bucs are hosting the Bengals. I know the Bucs just got stomped by the Niners. And the Bengals are arguably the hottest team in football right now. I don't think this is pretty. I do not believe this is pretty. I think the Bengals go in there and they beat the Bucks pretty good. And listen, we could say it's about Brady. We could say it's about this. I think we could talk about being losses on the offensive line. I think the biggest loss the Bucks had was Bruce Arians. I mean, there's just something here between Todd Bowles and Bruce Arians. There's a big difference. Now, I would have been okay once Bruce Arians retired if they had said Byron Leftwich is the new coach. Never had the opportunity to coach before. Now, do I think Todd Bowles deserved a second chance? Sure. I'm not going to argue with a guy getting a second chance. But my problem with Todd Bowles is he's just too even keel for me. Bruce Arians is a guy who gets fired up and he's intense. Todd Bowles is very laid back in what he says. And I just think I think for this team that was the wrong guy. Now, either you go external or I would have given Byron Leftwich a shot. But Todd Bowles has really struggled. And his defense hasn't played great. The offense has not played great either. So I look at that team and I go, okay, they might be, if they win the South, I'm not going to ever count Tom Brady out of anything. That's where this goes. I've never counted Tom Brady out. I won't do it here, but the Bucs are in trouble. The Bengals, now they're at the top of the AFC North because of the Ravens lost yesterday. Burrow's been sensational. They got Jamar Chase back, T. Higgins. Joe Mixon came back. He was solid. Defense is getting into form. This is what they did last year. It really is it's a blueprint, what they did last year for this year. It's the same plan. So circle that calendar in a couple of weeks when Monday night they host the Bills. Circle that one. Woo-wee, that's going to be a fun Monday night game. So there's that. I believe that's your 4:25 game of the week. I think it's a CBS game too, so that'll probably be Nance and Roma. So some other big games today. You got the Cowboys and the Jags. The Jags just stomped the Tennessee Titans in their building. Look, I'm rooting for the Jags because I think if the Jags get in to the playoffs, we're getting wild. But they have an opportunity here to make a statement. They made a statement last week. They made a statement early in the year, too, when they went into LA and just beat the snot out of the Chargers. I don't think they're going to beat the Cowboys. I don't. I think Dak is playing pretty well. There's too many weapons. They're going to get Tyron Smith back, it looks like, today. They can run the ball effectively. And this defense is legit. So I hope Trevor Lawrence and company keep it close. That would be my goal if I was a Jags fan today. But the Dallas Cowboys are just too good. So, but the Jags are still alive. And that's going to make for some interesting noise later in the year. So the Jags on Thursday night, they'll play the New York Jets, who today host the Detroit Lions. The news is Mike White is out, and in comes Zach Wilson. Now, there's been some reporting that I've seen. So this is all secondhand. None of this is firsthand knowledge. That there's been some issues between ownership and Robert Saleh as what pertains to Zach Wilson playing. Now, this was the easiest game to put Zach Wilson into when they first benched him after another putrid game against the New England Patriots. That being said, you couldn't play him in Minnesota just because of it being the following week. Some stuff happened. So you can't play him that week. You weren't playing him against the Bills because if he played poorly, again, we're going to be in that same spot. Home game against the Lions was an easy one. And Mike White took a beating last week. So you could say, oh, Mike White's hurt, so Zach's going to start. Do I think that's nonsense? I do, because I think Zach should have been the backup last week. Because if Zach Wilson was the backup last week, he would have come into that game and they would have never thrown Mike White back out there. Because Mike White kept getting beaten like a piñata. The Bills' defense was teeing off on him. So the Jets are fighting for their playoff lives. They turn to Zach Wilson in what turns out to be a big game for both teams because the Lions have won 5 of 6, and they're in the thick of things in the NFC playoff picture. Jared Goff has played well, really well, deserves a lot of credit for the way he's played. They've run the ball effectively with Swift and Williams. Aiden Hutchinson, the number 2 overall pick, has been really good. Dan Campbell's got these guys going, man. He does. And they have talent on the outside. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark has come alive. And Jameson Williams just came back, the first-round pick from Alabama, who had 1 catch last week, and it turned out to be a 41-yard touchdown. So the Lions are building something nice. And they have the Rams first-round pick this year, which is looking like that's going to be in the top 10 for sure. So they're building something nice in Detroit. So good for the Detroit fans. They deserve this. After years and years of suffering. All right. So on to the 4 o'clock game. We got a Belichick versus assistant matchup, Patriots-Raiders. The Raiders technically still alive in the wild card race. Say what you will. I think last week's loss to the Rams, tough to bounce back from. So we'll see what they do. New England comes off a win over the Cardinals. Max played okay. Looks like they'll have Jacoby Myers today. They're not sure about Ramondre Stevenson. But this is a team right now that I think New England knows they're good. I think New England's good. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're necessarily talented. But they're finding ways to win games. And that's why they are in the thick of the playoff race. And it's a Belichick coach team. Never put it past them. And this is a game against one of his former assistants. Interesting. It's an interesting game in December in Vegas. So, big game for the Raiders, big game for the Patriots, big game for the AFC wild card. We have the Titans and the Chargers too. Chargers coming off that nice Sunday night win over the Dolphins last week. The Titans coming off getting stomped by the Jags at home. The Titans are probably going to win the South, so this is still an important game because they got to bounce back. Huge game for the Chargers. Huge game for the Chargers if they want to make the playoffs. Because them, New England, the Jets, the Dolphins, they're all in that same tier. The Ravens, they're all in that same tier of 8-6, 7-7. They're all in that range. So this is a huge game for Herbert and the Chargers to go out and win. Can they put it together and make it 2 in a row after last week's win? I think the Titans are going to ride Derrick Henry. Actually, let me rephrase that. I know the Titans are going to ride Derrick Henry. So if you can force the Titans to throw the ball with Ryan Tannehill, you probably got a really good chance to win this game. For the Titans, their defense just needs to figure it out because they were not good last week against the Jags. So Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they're both back for the Chargers. Austin Eckler's back. The Titans are going to have to find their way here with Mike Vrabel. So let's see how that goes. Titans, Chargers. And then Sunday night, we got a big one tonight. Giants, Commanders. Both teams are, ironically enough, the Commanders' last game was a tie against the Giants 2 weeks ago. I don't like the way the Giants are playing football. I think two things. I think early in the year, the Giants, I'm going to say something that's going to get the Giant fan probably very angry, and I apologize. I think early in the year, the Giants got lucky with a lot of things. One, I think teams underestimated them. I think two, they caught breaks. Going for 2 against the Titans, doing this, the Raven game. So many times, so I think the Giants were underestimated early. I also think the injury bug has caught up to them. You know, they're a wide receiver injury away from signing me. That's where I'm at on the Giants with their receivers. It's not good. And Daniel Jones has come down to earth. And the defense can only do so much. You know, Saquon should be 100% ready to go tonight, I believe he said. So this big game for the Giants to try to turn it around. And it's the red-hot Commander team that, look, they've changed their fortune. I'm not sure if they're getting Chase Young back. It was rumored he was going to come back tonight. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. But the Commander's been good with Taylor Heineke and Brian Robinson. That's been really good. Their defense has turned it around. They get pressure on the quarterback, force turnovers. Heineke, Terry McLaurin's a stud. Everyone should know that. But I like the Commanders. I do. I don't like the way the Giants are playing. And I think if you asked a Giant fan before the season if they won 7 games, if they'd be happy, I think every Giant fan would tell you, we're winning 7 games this year with this roster. Okay, I'll take it. So I think Dable and Joe Shane are taking this in the right direction. I think Ron Rivera is taking Washington in a decent direction, mainly because the off-the-field stuff overshadows the on-the-field stuff, but that's not his fault. But listen, I like the way the Commanders are playing. They're the 3rd best team in this division, kind of by default, because the first 2 are way better than they are. But both teams playing for playoff spot. So the break the Giants got was Seattle lost. So if Detroit loses, that'll also benefit the Giants. So there's that as well. Monday night with the Rams and the Packers. And I think I said earlier, the Colts are the biggest disappointment in football. And I'm with that. These 2 teams also fall in that category. The Rams have injuries, that they've had things happen to them, and that's fine. Baker played really well last week when he came in, so he'll get the start. The Packers, they're still alive. They're clinging to a pulse, but they're still alive. But I just don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Packers. I don't know what it holds for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what it holds for the Packers. These last 3 games, very interested to see what happens between Rodgers, the Packers, and company. You know, if they lose this game to the Rams, they're probably done. If they win, then things may get a little bit more interesting in the NFC because here come the big bad Packers. But I think the Packers do win at home tomorrow night. And I think the Packers, I don't know if they're going to go on a mini run here. I don't know. But would it shock me? No, it wouldn't. But I like them tomorrow night. I'm not sure about the rest of the season, how that's going to play out for them. Because I do know they still have to play the Vikings one more time. And they go to Miami Christmas Day. As for the Rams, the F them picks model got them a Super Bowl. And this year they've taken a step back, but you take one step forward, two steps back. But next year, I would expect the Rams to be a good team next year. I would. There's no reason why they wouldn't. So, great slate of games today and tomorrow. We'll come back with you next week. We're not sure on the day because I don't know if we're going to do a Christmas Day or Christmas Eve morning special. But the Sunday Sideline Report will be back next week on the SIN YouTube page. Check out all the podcasts, Google, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for great blogs, vlogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. And I'm your host, Pun Master Mike Rifkin. Enjoy the Sunday slate of football, everybody. Have a great day. Have a happy, Merry Christmas, and Namaste.